Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to the webinar, Weight Loss for Women Who Feel Too Much. I am Colette Baron-Reid. I'm the author of Weight Loss for People Who Feel Too Much, which has now become a bestseller in paperback, and I'm super, super thrilled that you have chosen to spend some time with me to hear what I've discovered that set me free from the failures of yo-yo dieting and obsessing about my weight, and what thousands of other women have too since I launched the actual program outlined in this book 4 years ago. I'm going to give you a taste of some powerful and super simple tools to help you finally find peace with all of this and show you how you can release the extra weight that's holding your hot mama hostage. So what makes my program different is what the word weight refers to. So forget your scale. This is not a diet, and it's not another BS fad that you're going to fail at. See, I've discovered that the excess physical weight is a symptom that's directly related to the emotional weight of stress, frustration, anxiety, and the need to protect yourself from the onslaught of energy from the environment that you're tuned into. You know, that sense of being on patrol all the time. You're tuned into an emotional radio that just never goes off, and you've got to find some way to get out of Dodge. And being on social media and dealing with the beauty industry on top of it all, we end up bullying ourselves into submission, and it's a huge problem that does the exact opposite of what we hope we can one day achieve. So take a deep breath with me now. I know you must be feeling what I talked about. So it's okay, because there's a solution for women who feel too much, and it's in my book and in my online training programs too. And we have women who have taken this that have been successful at this when they failed at everything else. So on to the good stuff. What can you do now to start this and claim your hot mama? Okay, before we get started, I just want to do a little housekeeping to make sure you get the best out of this presentation. We're not going to be on here for too long, but hey, bear with me and hang in here. Don't hang up before it's over, because there's so much stuff in here that just for you, it's free, so it's for you. Hang in. We're going to give you some powerful tools and actions, but first, you should have printed out the action guide. And if you haven't, no problem. Just make sure you have something to write with and on now. Next, make sure your phone is off, or there's no bells going to go off, or the doorbell or whatever. And if it is, let somebody else answer it. Go somewhere quiet, because you're going to give yourself the me time you deserve. This is something you're going to be working towards from this moment forward, and a big part of why many of my students in the Weight Release Energetics course have had so much success. In fact, it's why all of them have the success. So while we wait for people to settle in and find their pens and papers, let's have some fun. Okay, here are some fun facts. You can drop a whole pant size just by reducing stress. True story, and we've got a case study to prove it. Next, eating off a red plate controls your appetite. Oh my God, it's totally true. I heard it from Dr. Oz. I did the research, and oh boy, yes, so get yourself one. And you'll find out all about it later in the class if you want to come. Anyway, mindfulness changes brain chemistry and helps with weight loss. Yes, indeedy, for sure. Science has proven that, and we've got all that in one package here. So when you signed up, you should have received a bunch of items to help you with your goals. In the webinar action guide, we asked you to download and print. If you opened up the action guide under the free tools, there were links to download even more stuff and links to some videos. Here's a list of what we gave you, and I'll explain why these are valuable tools and not just free stuff before we get into the meat and, well, or I don't know if we'll call it the meat of the thing, but before we get right into the actual tools that I have for you in the webinar. So the free tools, you got a weight loss meditation package. You've got 3 awesome stress relieving meditations that work. We've proved it. Do them. They're awesome. You've got the intro to my book, and we're giving you chapter 9 that has all the kind of like things to do right now to help you. And I hope you like it enough that you'll get the book and do the program, hopefully with some of your friends. People who are most successful at this do it in little book clubs. Journey through the chakras. We give you the first 3 chakras because they help clear and balance you where you need it most. Then you've got videos, you've got a conversation with me and my buddy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who tells us all about the science in case you're questioning whether this is all woo-woo or whatever. It's total science-based. And the doctor segment, where the doctor chatted with me about this book and my theories and proved on the animation why what I'm talking about is true. So check it out. Look at it, and now let's talk. It's called Weight Loss for Women Who Feel Too Much, this webinar. And the question begs, how do you know you're a woman who feels too much? How can you tell? So I want you to hear some very interesting and some sobering facts that may help you with being a woman who feels too much, so you understand what all of us deal with. So if you think you're a woman who feels too much, you're not alone. 1 out of 5 people are considered overly sensitive and empathic, which means you can sense the energy of emotions in a room when you walk into it. You know if somebody's mad, you know if somebody's lying to you, you get, overwhelmed in crowds, you have to isolate. It's like too much. When you go to a family, it's too much. That's a person who's empathic, and you're the kind of person that wants to help everybody. That's also this kind of person who feels too much. Elaine Aron, she's the author of The Highly Sensitive Person. She estimates the number of highly sensitive people to be 20% of the population. But since her research, and the number has grown larger since she's done this, through increased technological communications, we're experiencing a far greater and more intense sense of connection to other people. And for people who don't understand how empathy overload feels or what causes it, it can be overwhelming and destabilizing because you don't know what's happening to you. You just know you just can't take it, but you don't even know what you can't take. Anyway, what do? Women who feel too much, we use food to ground ourselves because we have too much of our own feelings jumbled up with what we pick up from the environment. And in that moment, food works, by the way. Food brings us completely in the moment, completely physical. And that's why we do it. It's not the same for anybody else. It's not addictive eating either. It's something else. If you're a woman who feels too much, you're going to use food to detour away from the feeling of not knowing where you end and other people begin. Like, where am I? Where do I end? Where are you? Most of the time we feel like there's no boundary between us. And and I'm going to say we because I am one, we may sense the need to eat because the world is too much in that moment. And diets, they don't work because they don't address the need to feel grounded and separate from the confusing emotional turbulence. And check this one out. If you're a woman who feels too much, just think about this. At 4 o'clock, 8 or 10 hours after waking, if you're a woman who feels too much, you're likely overwhelmed by empathy overload. And that's when you're likely to engage in disordered eating or some other distraction, some other way you try to get out of yourself. That happens pretty much to everybody. The research shows that if you are highly sensitive and empathic, that has a profound influence on your weight, as well as your thought processes and your moods. So if you identify with any of this, you're in the right place. You probably don't even realize when you're taking on someone else's emotions that you're experiencing when they're feelings that aren't yours, but you just know you feel off. And why are diets unreliable? They're unreliable for absolutely everybody. All the scientific research says that 5 years after a diet, most people have regained the weight. 40% of people have gained even more. And the typical outcome of dieting is that you're likely to gain weight in the long run rather than lose it. And I bet you any money, if you're sitting here listening to this webinar, you're one of those people, because I've been one of those people too. And so we have a solution here. Women who have the most problem with this are caregivers, caregivers in communities, full-time grandmothers, nurses' aides, church volunteers, teachers, anybody who works in a helping or healing profession. You're going to notice that we will fluctuate more than others, or people who are around a lot of people all the time. Sobering, yes, but demoralizing, absolutely not. It does not have to be, because knowledge is self-empowering. So let's get started with the action guide, why you're here, your easy to do steps, beginning with the first section. Let's go to number 1. Compassion curbs your appetite. Compassion fills you up and it closes the invisible hole. So you don't need to stuff yourself. When you are compassionate with yourself and you make a decision to have a positive attitude, even if you're faking it till you make it, I'm telling you, what happens is it starts to release those feel-good hormones of serotonin and dopamine. So when you've added that, you've got the positive psychology of saying, you know what, I'm going to make myself compassionate to myself and others. And what that really means, instead of empathy, it means that I'm not feeling for for that person. I'm caring for that person. But for myself, having a safe boundary for me, I'm compassionate to myself, which means I care about myself. And yes, I recognize you, but there's just this automatic boundary there. When you are practicing compassion, you become, it's more of almost like a higher self that engages in this. So that immediately reduces your stress. Then when you add self-love to it, well, you've got hot mama. And you won't even notice how, once you get the hang of it, the pounds just melt away. And one of our participants who took the Weight Release Energetics online course, which this webinar is actually based on, and who's now a Weight Release Energetics coach, she didn't even realize she'd lost over 40 pounds in a few months. All she was doing was practicing compassion and doing the very simple steps that we had outlined in there, not dieting, staying away from the scale, not freaking out about her weight, not worrying at all, just the simple practicing compassion. Her pants literally fell down at work. She didn't even notice how much weight she'd lost. It's crazy. Her story and so many other people's stories are so inspiring. And I want to let you know that if you use any 3 points in this webinar, you're going to see results as long as you do them on a daily basis. You make a decision, today I will be compassionate. So in this first space in this section, write this down. How do I get to be compassionate, right? Like that sounds like, oh, Colette says be compassionate. Number 1, this is how you get compassion. Melt your heart. Yes, I said that. Melt your heart. Get in touch with your ability to care and to love unconditionally. For example, does your dog melt your heart? Compassion means you're conscious about caring. So what a great exercise to do if you have a pet. That's why people take pets to hospitals, because it lowers your blood pressure. And when they're healing, they're really healing. We have our own little weight release specialists in our house. Consciously spending time with your animal, really getting in touch with how does it feel to be completely unconditional with myself and with this animal. I'm telling you, it's amazing. You start to recognize what that feels like. If I could see myself the way my dog or cat sees me, loving me, because you start recognizing this exchange and going like, what if I did that for me? What if I was my pet, right? So, and this is such an amazing thing. It totally works. That when you have that same kind of experience unconditionally towards yourself with self-compassion, it is more effective than willpower when it comes to sticking to, for example, your eating goals. And reducing stress, proven to reduce cortisol, which is the culprit to why our bodies retain weight when we're feeling too much. So as nutty as that sounds, melt your heart is your number 1 priority, and it works. Now, here's something awesome. The second thing I want you to do, be kind to 3 strangers and don't tell anybody. And if you can do this every day, just be conscious about kindness. This is how, again, you engage compassion. You feel the compassion, by the way. So if you can't do it, I'm going to be compassionate to me. The expression of compassion means you embody compassion. So this also teaches you what it feels like to care without a hook. You understand what I mean when I say without a hook? People who feel too much are hooked into caring for other people. We feel like we have to. We feel we don't know how to set a boundary. This way it teaches us what it feels like to care and be compassionate with no hook. I recently met a well-known film director, actually, who wears this bead bracelet with a little special notch in it. And he told me about this. Every time he does one random act of kindness, he moves the bead past the notch. The catch is he can't tell anybody about his good deed, or he has to put back the bead. So cool. I can hardly wait that these things are for sale because I'm going to make all my students buy them. Because it really, really works because you're just feeling good. When you're feeling good, you're not going to try to detour away from yourself and shove any food in your face, and you're not going to try to hurt yourself, and you're not going to need to run away from yourself because you're going to be feeling very centered and grounded. Now, the third thing, make a pity pot. Yes, I said it. Put your complaints, your resentments, when you're hysterical, when you're mad at your mother-in-law, when you're pissed off at your sister, when you don't like your boss, all of these things, you write it down. You don't talk to anybody about it. You do not complain. You don't share that energy. You don't complain, you don't blame, and you don't explain. And for 8 solid weeks, that's all you got to do is stick it in the pity pot. Promise yourself 2 months. You're going to, I'm going to get off 2 months and not saying anything, and we'll put it in the box. You are going to feel amazing. These may sound like trivial things, but what is really happening is you're training your brain to release stress. And there isn't a better cortisol combatant than feeling joy and compassion. Bringing joy to yourself and to others knocks the cortisol down on its butt and off of yours. So now let's go to the next section. And I call this no bullying. And this will help you understand self-compassion. And this section is a biggie. How to stop bullying yourself and fire your inner drill sergeant. For the first point, write this one down in big, bold letters and doodle little hearts around it. Number 1, no more fat talk. No more saying, I'm a pig. No more saying, I have a muffin top. No more saying, do I look fat? No more saying, she looks fat. No more panicking when you're looking at a magazine and you're not like that. They've been photoshopped to death. This causes the stress hormone, again, of cortisol. Negative thoughts bring negative results. Don't open your mouth and say anything anymore negative about yourself and your body. No more fat talk. Check this out. In the U.S., 80% of 10-year-old girls say they've been on a diet. 1/3 of non-overweight girls report dieting. Several long-term studies have shown that girls who diet in their early teenage years, and I was one of them, are 3 times likely to become overweight 5 years later, even if they started at a normal weight because of the fear and anxiety that accompanies their thinking. Do you have a daughter? Was this you when you were that age? I mean, think about it. What about your grandkids? We really have an issue that's not just for women who feel too much, it's for all women. Of American elementary school girls who read magazines, 69% say the images influence their concept of the ideal body shape. 49% say the pictures make them want to lose weight. And I'm not kidding. Most of those pictures, if you look on the internet, you'll see all kinds of information now about how they're photoshopped and how they're so unnatural. And this is what we're showing ourselves and our kids. Was this you? And again, is this your daughter or granddaughter? The fat talk has got to stop. Can you imagine what it's like for young girls now? 81% of 10-year-olds afraid of being fat? Come on. So about us now, well, our brain has its own sense of what we should weigh. It's called your set point. It's actually a range of 10 to 15 pounds. Successful dieting doesn't lower your set point. And even after you've kept the weight off for as long as 7 years, your brain keeps trying to make you gain it back if that's the place where you feel protected. So what's helpful in this case is to go to the heart of the matter, so to speak, and love yourself. And then the brain will begin to see a new set point because it won't be so busy to order the body to create all that cortisol to protect you. So, again, write down in big giant letters, no more fat talk, and doodle little hearts around it. So, how do you shut up the fat talk? For the second point, write this down. Number 2, find a practice that helps you become aware of your thoughts. Wear a totem of some sort, like a bracelet or something you carry and can rub, like a worry stone you can keep in your pocket. The meditations I sent you are short and very grounding. I'm not saying you need to do them all in one sitting. That's too much. But maybe start practicing just doing one a day. Maybe doing it in the morning and one at night. Some of them are only 4 minutes long, and this is part of your me time, but they work. Let's go to number 3. This is a big one. If you take a bite, let it be. I'll repeat. If you take a bite, let it be. One of the most important mindsets you can foster is that of mindful allowing. If you can have anything you want without restriction, and this is a way of thinking, without any sense of deprivation or punitive reaction to choosing, say, to have dessert, you've not ruined anything. You're not on any kind of wagon to fall off of. I will say that you will feel the best and be the most successful saying no to sugar and refined flours. But if you have some, it's not a reason to binge. Go ahead. You know, scientific studies are now also showing that self-care and self-compassion leads to healthier choices anyway. You're going to eventually want to choose new habits that are better for your well-being. So once in a while, if you want to eat a whole pint of ice cream and that's what you want in that moment, choosing mindfully, do it. But be mindful that you don't call it bad food. No food is bad in moderation. And I'll say this, if you give yourself permission, you will find you won't want the whole thing anyway. Because, well, do I want this? Does my body really want this? Once you've given yourself permission to be completely open, allowing any kind of food to exist in your life, you'll start choosing what's best for your body. So if you take a bite, let it be. How many times have you taken a bite of something and immediately started berating yourself? Maybe you ate several cookies before. You even noticed they were in your hand and promptly began beating yourself up. I've done this before. So once I stopped and let myself have anything I wanted, I think I stopped eating any of the things I didn't like that weren't good for me. I just didn't want them because I let myself choose. Like, do you want this? Do you really want this? It's amazing. But why it works when we stop beating ourselves up, because it's another form of self-inflicted stress that will raise your cortisol and tell your body to hold on tight to the calories you just ate anyway. So being angry at yourself for taking a bite is completely counterproductive and will completely not work. But this is the moment when you most need to hear. You need to tell yourself that it's okay. Then ask yourself what you need. Maybe it's a hug from a friend or some peace and quiet. Maybe you need to ground and reset yourself by taking a walk outside, for example. If you have your totem with you, pause and check in with yourself. What's the tone of your thoughts? And could you direct them to something that feels a little better? I'm here to tell you that yes, you can. It just takes a little teeny bit of practice. Awareness is the first step. Now let's go to number 4. You are 1000% okay exactly where you are. I know that says, well, what if I want to change? How can I possibly be okay where I am? Well, this is, again, a way the mind works. You must reframe your self-dialogue. We begin by surrendering the negative. So here's a really quick story. I weighed 219 pounds, probably more than that since that was the last time I stepped on a scale, the year I ballooned up when my mom got cancer and died 3 months later. And I had years of dysfunctional eating and body image behind me, but this was the bottom for me, total bottom. And I did every diet and lost and gained weight like a giant yo-yo before that. But this time it wouldn't budge at all. Absolutely nothing worked. And I had that drill sergeant going like a Gestapo back and forth. And I went on diets, restricted everything, and nothing worked. The food didn't work. The body stayed the way it was. And I just hit emotional bottom. And I decided, screw it. No more diets. I'm just going to have to love myself as I am. End of story. And I focused on what was right about my life. Gratitude. I dumped my resentments. I really cleaned up the way I was thinking. And honest to God, poof, took about 1.5 years and the weight came off. Size 20 became size 12, then size 10, then now size 8. And my body, like your body, is a genius, and it knows exactly what to do without an inner drill sergeant to yell it into submission. My body likes size 8, and sometimes 10. End of story. I fired that guy. No way will I bully myself about my looks ever again. And you will learn to say no to that drama too. And that brings us to number 5. Fire your inner drill sergeant. Punishing yourself and being rigid will do the exact opposite of what you think you're controlling, and you'll continuously run cortisol in your body. Rigid self-control and willpower is counterproductive for us because it adds more stress, which compounds our overload. Now, this is the kicker. At first, it may feel euphoric, like, wow, we've got it licked now. But then what? If you're listening, then you know that you've experienced the punishing inner critic and perfectionist relentlessly focused on every lettuce leaf when the issue isn't about your food to begin with. But all of us will eventually rebel or be resigned that we'll fail, and you will. Then the cycle begins again. This does nothing for empathy overload, stress hormones, nor helps release the feel-good hormones that actually bring you into balance so that you can finally release the weight that's sticking to you like glue. Let's recap, okay? 1, no more fat talk. 2, find a practice that helps you become aware of your thoughts. And next was, if you take a bite, let it be. And 4 was, you are 1000% okay exactly where you are. And finally 5, fire your inner drill sergeant. which leads us into our next section. Keep your big heart and shrink your big backside. Woohoo! Number 1, compassion. So what does it feel like? Compassion feels expanded, open and receptive, calm and happy. And that equals a sense of allowing, and you feel like sharing. Versus codependence, contracted, closed, tight, anxious, angry, fearful, the need to manipulate, to control, or to escape. Or number 2, we unplug from media. You feel too much also because you're unconsciously tuned into the weight and pain of the world, and the media doesn't help. So we ask you to unplug your media, and you only use the social media for the purpose of connecting consciously with the group when you need help and when you want to share. Number 3, detach from negative environments. If you want to lose the weight, you need to let go the weight of the world and the stress of being unable to shut off the noise in the environment that's causing you to be overweight. Just imagine with me for a moment. Close your eyes. If you identify with feeling too much, just see yourself as a sponge sitting at a family holiday dinner where there's a lot of tension and stress. You walked into the room and felt it, yes? Could that be you? Did you feel it as an assault and want to find a way out just to be there? Imagine the holes in your sponge, big and squishy. And you soak up all the feelings in the environment. Well, what happens now? Well, you either swell up and go home and wonder why you gained 7 pounds when you barely ate anything, or you stuff your face while you're there so you don't have to feel, or you do that when you get home. But what if there was a way to be you and to be able to do this differently? Well, there is, and I tell you all about it in my book. And we work it together in my new online class, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But first, there's another way you might identify. You may also be the type everyone turns to for help because you are that awesome, caring, beautiful person who wants to help and who actually has loads of answers for everyone. You've got such a big heart. You're super intuitive. You've started having a big bum to match the big heart. Or maybe you've always had it. Well, how about this one? What about falling in love and miraculously melting into a teeny pair of jeans? How did that happen? Well, here's your hint. No cortisol. Hint, feel-good hormones. Hint, that's how it works. But what about when the awesome guy turns into a broken boy with loads of baggage? Could you have found yourself 3 sizes bigger by the time you kick him out or he leaves you for somebody else? Maybe you respond by being an emotional caretaker, or maybe you deal by being an isolator. But if you're here, you're also confused and probably fed up with the diet and weight fiasco. And I hope you're done, because guess what? This program works and we will support you through it. Number 4, this is fun. Whiners will make you fat. Other people's energy, friends, family, gossipers, and complainers that know your big heart gives you a big shoulder to lean on that leads to a big butt. Say no for now. And number 5 is the solution. Guess what? Your ears and your shoulder are closed for repairs for a solid 2 months. You're going to stay away from the things that stress, cause negative emotional engagement, and cause you to worry. And that's what you're going to do. And you are going to see results.